that worked for me, she said, "Oh, my dad was there. He was staying in the Row Hotel. He was there the same time I was for a week." Yeah. I actually did see 2 people I knew there, but it's amazingly huge. We're just having some technical.
Okay.
We're filling time on my trip to New York. There's so much garbage there, though. Oh my gosh. Like, I couldn't stop. I know John's like, okay, enough of the garbage.
Did you want some?
I took pictures of it. I've never seen so much garbage. I was like, what do you do? You're finished? You just throw it?
Business adoption of the
So
minutes,
scary.
et cetera, and when we get to the
I was in San
presentations, I
Francisco,
can
same
go
thing,
and
garbage.
try and connect
Really?
with local
And all the
resources in
crates,
my
like,
office.
there's all this garbage that's just waiting.
Okay, so would you please rise? May we act with strength and the benefit of good guidance to perform our duties honestly, wisely, fearlessly, and well for the good of those we seek to serve. Please be seated.
Thank you.
I'll call the regular meeting of August 15th to order and would ask if there's any late items, Ms. Robertson? Okay. And so we have the next item on the agenda, the approval of the agenda. So motion to approve. Okay, moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And so we're moving on to the adoption of minutes. We have the item 4.1, the July 18th council minutes, and a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we have the item 4.2, which is the August 2nd Committee of the Whole minutes, and a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we're going to move on to presentations. We have a few councillors away, as you can see. It's the dog days of summer, so I hope everybody's managing the heat well in the community. I would ask first that we're going to have a presentation from Inspector Ray Carfentan, just to give us a quarterly update. Thank you, Inspector.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, councillors. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about policing in our community. We've had an exceptionally busy 2016 this year to date. Our calls for service so far in the first 6 months are up 15% in comparison to last year. And to put that into some context, we've gone up about 4 or 5% every year since 2012. But this year alone, in the first half of the year, up 16%. So very, very busy year for us. On the bright side, our staffing levels will be fully achieved in the month of September for the first time in quite some time. Our minimum staffing levels for officer safety in the Uniform Patrol Division are no less than 5 officers. And we've adjusted our positions somewhat with that, as we found we didn't quite have enough people on occasion to manage what we had. So with a watch of 8 people, we're now allowing no more than 2 to be away, which gives us functionally 6 and then 5 on those occasions when we need an emergency leave situation or someone has to get sick or that sort of thing. So we just found that we weren't able to function with the numbers of people that we had minimally. So for the first time since September of last year, I'll be able to fully staff my plainclothes position in September of 2016. So good news in that respect. Briefly, with respect to prolific offender management, we're meeting with Crown and Probation to further refine this approach to crime reduction locally here, specifically with those persons living in the community on court-imposed conditions. And the refined strategy, like a lot of things that we're doing right now, is geared towards streamlining our processes and being more efficient with the people that we have. As the numbers of calls for service go up and our staffing levels haven't gone up, we find we need to be more efficient with what we're doing. The Municipal Traffic Unit in the detachment consists of 3 members funded by the Municipality of North Cowichan, and they have provided a significant presence and benefit this year, albeit they're not largely in the city of Duncan. There is tremendous spin-off benefit from having those specifically bodies in the Trans-Canada Highway area, and as well the backup they provide for the urgent calls that we have. And the report speaks to sort of some of the priority 1, 2, and 3 calls that we have in the report that you have before you. The Nanaimo URSU, or Integrated Road Safety Unit, also works occasionally in this area as they travel up and down their respective patrol area. And their stats are reflected in page 10 of that report, with over 250 contacts. That's what we call them, contacts, so far this year. So a nice little spin-off benefit for us. I don't have any statistical report from the South Island Traffic Services office in Chemainus, but we do also get support from them in terms of their presence in this area, largely because of where they're housed. Their patrol area actually starts at the Duke Point overpass, goes as far south as Pender Island and over to Souk. But of course, when they're housed in Chemainus, we do tend to get some spin-off benefit. So you may or may not be happy with your contact with South Island Traffic, but it's nice to have the extra policeman around on those occasions too, where we need a few extra people. Our initiatives towards visibility during the summer are largely around an extended uniform presence. We're trying to be more policemen out there for more people to see us. So what we do to achieve that goal in the summer months is we take our community policing section, our traffic section, and our street crime section, put them on bikes, put them in bike shorts, get them on the trails, get them on the dikes, and get them interacting this year largely with a lot of the homeless people that we have in the area. Tremendous presence, getting to know them physically, personally, trying to find resources for them, find out what each individual's issues are so they can kind of further their cause and find them a place to be safe. And we've got really good feedback from the community about the visibility, but also from a lot of the marginalized people that we do deal with day to day, because we are taking a much more personal interest in their well-being. I'm not going to say that we're having tremendous success in finding them homes, but we are taking an interest, and I think it's really appreciated it's noticeably appreciated from them. The bar watch and our liquor enforcement areas are areas that our officers continue to work at during their unallocated time, and I'll speak to unallocated time in a little bit here. We like to have that visible presence in the bars, make sure that the behavior is appropriate when the bar staff are dealing with people that are under the influence of alcohol. And again, just that casual reminder that when people are out drinking and they see the police, perhaps is a good time to take a cab home if they've had too many, that sort of thing. The emergence of a formal integrated case assessment team, or ICAT, with respect to domestic violence has brought a strong focus and a collaborative effort to reducing instances of domestic violence. This collaboration between the police and community support service is a key strategy for taking the domestic violence instances and trying to impose a significant decrease in recidivism. They deal with the most significant or serious risks to harm, and there have been cases in the Okanagan and in recent years at least on the island, where domestic violence has gotten far out of hand and families have been lost, and we're really trying to ensure that that doesn't happen here. So for this quarter, the 3-month period ending June 30th, we responded to just over 4,500 calls for service. This is a dramatic increase of over 1,350 calls, as I said, this year. So an additional 1,350 calls have been responded to in the first 6 months compared to the same time last year. And again, those are calls for service as described by our reports to the dispatchers who dispatch the calls to us. So based on this steady increase, where we had 17,500 calls last year for service, we're on our way to in excess of 20,000 calls for service this year. The General Duty Staffing Analysis, or GDSA, formerly known as GDSAC, but the acronym apparently didn't roll off well in Vancouver, so they've changed it to GDSA. I'm willing to roll with that. So we're certainly well into the deployment of that staffing analysis now. The process, we look closely at what calls for service we receive, where they come from, and what time of day that we receive them. Additionally, we look at the time spent responding to these calls and following up with documentation to gather an accurate picture of what we do, where we do it, and how long it takes to complete some of those investigations. So there was a pie chart on page 8 of the report that I provided. You see a brief snapshot from the month of June for the detachment overall. The key here is the proactive time at 6%, which translates into 43 minutes per shift, or just over 3.5 minutes per hour of unallocated time. So in a 60-minute period, my members on average in the month of June had 3.5 minutes that was unallocated time. So that isn't free time. Unallocated is the time that I expect them to do foot patrols, bar walks, stop vehicles, speak to the public, provide directions, and generally interact with people. So by definition, I think we're stretching our resources to the extreme. And those stats are based on having all but one of my general duty or patrol positions filled. It's just become that busy. Another element of the GDSA is something called Managing Patrol Performance. And that's a review of the times of day that we get calls for service. looking for peak periods. So what we've done from the analysis of that is realize that our peak periods are not consistent across the board, as any business is. And we've drawn one person from the full-time night shift and drawn them into an afternoon shift to add an additional person earlier in the day. So the existing shift schedule initially was 12-hour shifts with the same number of people from 6 in the morning till the following 6 o'clock in the morning period. By drawing that one person out of the night shift and into the afternoon shift, that is our busier time. So we actually have an additional person in the time when we have peak calls for service. So again, looking at the calls that we get, the types of calls and when they are, is allowing us to be as efficient as we can with the resources that we have. So we're getting a much more accurate understanding of how many police officers it takes to conduct business in any specific area of our boundaries, whether it's North Cowichan, Cowichan Tribe, City of Duncan, or the CVRD. And I'm hopeful to have a detailed report about that, that we're going to make a presentation to local officials, hopefully sometime in the early fall, where we can talk specifically with some sort of accuracy based on an extended period of time. Those are the stats from June. We've been collecting those stats since probably February with a degree of accuracy that we can count on. So we'll be expanding that over a period of months and then generating a report that says, based on the types of calls and the volume of calls and when they happen, these are the number of resources we should have, and this is the optimal shift scheduling for them. That, in a nutshell, is my report for you today. Absent any questions that you might have.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You've answered a number of the questions with respect to resourcing, and I know that you'll be coming to a meeting, I believe, in September as well, and I think we're having somebody from Island Division 2 as well. The resource question is, I understand, a real difficulty, especially with the call volumes that we're experiencing now. So in the short term, you believe you've been able to reorganize the shift? I mean, I've seen some of the bikes on patrol, those kind of things out there in the community, but we are getting feedback. I'm sure you know that we're getting feedback from the community with respect to the amount of incidences or other things that are happening in the community. So you've answered a number of those questions, and I guess you'll probably have more information for us in September when we speak.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Yes, thank you very much, Inspector. Thank you for your report. I'm astonished at how your calls for service have increased in this last year. I would like to know what your thinking is about the priority 3 and priority 4 calls and putting more of them onto community policing. So, for instance, somebody comes back from their holiday and they notice that their lawnmower has been stolen and they don't know the brand name of it. And could your people on the desk not just direct them to community policing who could deal with it and then take the weight off of your staff at the detachment?
So when you say community policing, do you mean the volunteer community
Yes.
policing?
Yeah.
Base? In a short answer, no. It's not a responsibility or a role that they can fulfill to intake a file, open a file, be accountable to collect the appropriate data and put it into the system that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's a
Trying to be succinct.
straight up answer. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
I hope that
Councillor
wasn't
Bell.
off-putting. I didn't mean it to be.
No, and I get what you're saying. They're a volunteer and their job, they do speed watch and they do, walking around making the community safe, but there's police matters where people are trained and they know how to investigate and.
There are, and just by
There's
way of an
volunteer.
example, I'll expand on that a little bit. The two folks that I have working at my front counter are retired police officers, and often people coming into the office speak to them, and of course they wear civilian clothes, they don't wear a uniform anymore, but a great many people can't be satisfied by that interaction until we call someone with a uniform forward to talk to them. And I have almost 70 years of policing experience. One of the premier blood spatter analysts in Canada working at my front counter, the other guy with tremendous volumes of experience, but they want to talk to a young fellow with a uniform before they'll actually take the same answer from them. So it's just a bit of an interesting dynamic there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we'll probably get into more thorough discussion back and forth with respect to the meeting that we have coming up that you're scheduled for. So I think we can get into that because I have further questions about the auxiliary program and other things, but that should be addressed probably to that meeting.
Excellent.
So did you have a follow-up at all?
Well, I was just going to make a comment that I'm I'm sorry that you aren't given the resources and the tools to be able to hire people and keep people and be able to everybody do their jobs. Like, I can't imagine in my work if people had 3-5 minutes of spare time. You know, it's just not a tolerable work environment, and it'd be hard to attract people and an important job like yours. I'm sorry that you're having to try and manage that. It doesn't seem okay, and I'm certainly in support of trying to make things different. You know, when we go to the hospital, we're up in arms if we can't get a room and we don't get attention, and we wait, and we know there's problems there too. So provincially, we've got an issue here, but you know, I'm supportive locally that we can make sure our communities are safe and that you're able to respond and that you're not burning out your staff. Because nobody's going to want to come here if they know that it's just all work and no fun and there's turnover, and that's not fun. So.
Oh, it does impact morale. I will tell you, my members feel very supported locally. They get great feedback from, you know, people in the community and from yourselves as well, and it's very appreciated. It does go a very long ways. You know, it doesn't put another person on the road, but it does give someone the sense that, you know, the people understand and we share this problem. And I'm not the only person who has an issue with shortage of resources, and I know that. It's not unique to Duncan, but the comments and the feedback that we get, even for, you know, for the members on the road, are very, very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again in September.
Yes.
Great. So our next presentation is with respect to Mr. Borg Chan, who's a professional engineer with ISL Engineering, and they have been doing, sorry?
Just want to check in to see if Councillor Bruce can hear.
Yes, all is good.
Okay, and,
He's doing that with you.
okay, and if maybe just put the microphone a little bit closer to his,
Where is
so we
he that
can
he's
hear.
having so much fun? Like, all I
Qualicum
hear is
Beach.
laughter in the background.
He's in Qualicum Beach.
Oh, they're sure having fun in Qualicum right now. It's like giggling and laughing. Yeah, are they at a playground?
Okay, so thank you for coming, Mr. Chan, and I'm certainly looking forward to this report. We've had issues on this particular quarter. It's a very busy quarter, as your report supports, and so I'm happy to see today we're going to be receiving a presentation. We will not be making any decisions on any of the findings, and we'll have a more thorough discussion in our committee of the whole meeting likely in September.
That's true.
So
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, good. Good evening, Mayor and councillors, and also the city staff and Weston. My presentation today is talking about Coronation Avenue. So my name is Bob Chan. So I'm actually manager of the transport traffic engineering and road safety in the ISL Engineering. Briefly talking about the presentation agenda. So, I will talk about something about the background objective, and then we talk about the study methodology, corridor characteristic, traffic characteristic, collision characteristic, and then we're talking something about the identified operation and safety issue along the corridor, and then we have some remedy option development, and then we're talking about some recommendation and cost estimate. So this is my presentation agenda. Some background, I think probably you are more familiar than me, but just say about the city of Duncan actually tell us about they express some concern about there's some major conflict along the corridor between the vehicle and other road user. I'm talking about other road user, it's including pedestrian, the bicycle and truck, and usually the transit user. And they say we found that or the city found that there's higher than normal report received on the unsafe pedestrian movement in this area. Most of them is actually happened because of the high school. You know that this is a school on the lot for that one, secondary school there, so there's a lot of the conflict on that one. The other thing is that we found that they have lack of the bicycle facility on this corridor. This corridor actually based on the recent active transportation plan, they actually is to be a primary candidate to be our major active transportation mode corridor. So bicycle is one of the active transportation they consider. So I think with the funding of the ICBC and the city, So the city retained the ISLO to do some, we call it traffic operation and safety review study along this corridor. And we picked that the region is starting from the Yap Street and all the way going to the west of Highway 1. And we want to specify that the Highway 1 interchange is belong to the ministry, so we didn't include it in our study corridor. So the study methodology, I roughly say here. So this is the corridor, and the study methodology actually is mainly for the meeting. I do have the site visit, including the course as in-service safety review, and also review some ICBC data, because the ICBC collision data all provided, and we do some traffic count survey, and do some traffic operation analysis, and we do some warrant analysis, that's including the signal warrant, and also pedestrian crossing facility warrant. Then based on this one, we identify some operation and safety issue. We review that the countermeasure is not only the site-specific, we also consider corridor-wide. So both corridor-wide and site-specific, we also need to consider the countermeasure. And based on all that one, we finding out some of the potential remedy option. Then we do some cost estimate. The corridor characteristic is the wall actually is a four-lane cross section, four traveling cross section, I can say. And they have sidewalk on both sides, and also grass, trees, boulevard. Actually, it's pretty good on that pedestrian, or separate between the pedestrian and the vehicle movement vehicle. And they are actually one of the major east-west road connected to the downtown area and all the way to Highway 1. They are, this is our commercial truck route and BC Transit route. Although the BC Transit actually is only one way here. So actually it's only one way, is going out the other way around or something like one. I think it's one way for the eastbound. And they also have the emergency response route. As stated before, they are not necessarily the bicycle route, but definitely the primary corridor for the active transportation modes corridor. And I want to show is this is the cross section. We're thinking about what's happening on that one. This facing the east. So you can see that this lane is more like the parking lane. This is the full lane and with bicycle, and then the turning lane and full lane, and then moving lane, bicycle lane, and turning lane, and then the parking lane. And then have the boulevard and the sidewalk. So in this study, we have a focus on three study intersection. So that's including the Yap Street, this facing east, this whole corridor there. Fitztupper Street, that's facing west. St. Julian Street, that's facing north, to go into the corridor. As I said before, we're doing some in-service traffic safety review. That's actually a two-road safety engineer walking around, driving around this area, and takes the what's happening on that one. And we follow the TAD, that's the Transportation Associated Council. It's talking about the field observation report. We follow the information on how to do it. And each intersection, we spend about an hour. And then that's mainly during the school lunch hour and afternoon. We mainly see what's happening on that one. And we're also doing the traffic count. So traffic characteristic in here. So you can see the turning movement, AM, midday, and PM, and also the crossing pedestrian, and also bicycle. They're all in one drawing for free intersection. This all information actually in the report. So maybe really difficult to read it, but actually everything in the report. Yeah. In general, it's about 560 and 760 two-way traffic volume during the weekday. And we do find there's some high turning movement here. So such as the southbound left turn and westbound right turn, I think typo here. Westbound right turn, southbound left turn. We have it. I think mainly the traffic is going to the downtown and coming from the downtown. And also the northbound, eastbound right turn, and the northbound right turn to the Fitztupper Street, mainly go to the Duncan Mall here. And then also northbound right turn from the St. Julian Street for some area here, the traffic. We also found that it's about 40 to 120 pedestrian crossing along the crossing at the Francisco Street in here. I think mainly is the school in the top of here, so people walking around here. In general, we found that all these two intersections, the Yups and the St. Julian Street, is actually working well in the traffic operation. However, the Stupid Street have a problem because of the southbound have problem in AMP, northbound have the Loon and PMP have the problem. Mainly because they have the soft control intersection. So the full movement is okay, but the soft control movement is waiting for the gap for the four-lane cross-section area. We did find that based on the traffic volume, traffic analysis, we are assuming 2% annual growth rate for next 5 years. We found that in 2018, and 2 years later, this intersection for Francisco Street is actually need to be traffic signal. That's based on the TAG requirement for the signal warrant analysis. For collision is we get all the information in doing to identify or finding what the collision type or what happening when it happened. And we find that it's based on location. So this is collision based on along the corridor. And the blue one is showing the casualty. That means including injury and fatal usually. But this corridor, luckily we don't have any fatal collision in the last 5 years. And the red one is the property damage only. So altogether, 33 collision in 5 years. 75% is the last in the West 2 Street, West 2 intersection. 52% is casualty or injury, we said that before. And you can see here, it's quite high in the Yap Street also. That's almost 70%. In general, it's a 50% or more is high number. Usually in overall the corridor, in the BC, based on ICBC record, is about 40, 45 to 46 or something like that. And majority collision, we also find that the hourly distribution, monthly distribution is almost in the normal day or the school day. That's mean the weekday and school day. And also that's because of the high pedestrian, high vehicle movement. We do call it doing some collision diagram. So we base all the every collision and identify where they come from, where they come from, and create this called collision diagram. So some of them, for example, this one is lots of the collision happen is southbound left turn and the full movement. Because the full movement didn't expect the southbound left turn that high, and southbound left turn probably the gap is too low, so they turning faster. And also at the same time, because of the crosswalk here, so the people also will waiting for crossing, waiting for pedestrian, so it's a number of conflict in here, this area. On the other way around, in the Francisco Street is lots of collision happen is because of the angle collision. The people going up to one direction and northbound, southbound, and someone want to connect to the eastbound, westbound. One of the reasons mainly is possibly the gap is not that high, it's not that much, and the car capacity is poor in this location. And you also find that a couple of the collision actually happen is a backing. It's mainly is the people coming up, and they find that they need to back up because of people crossing, or they have people, the vehicle coming along, so they're backing up and they didn't know the car in the back, so hit the car in the back. And this intersection is very low collision, and also we also did some of the more what happening or some collision happen. So based on this one, we identify all the operational and safety issue. This is the summarize everything. Also that's in the report, so I'm not going into detail, but I do summarize some of the collision, some of the identified operation and safety issue. So for example, lack of the bicycle facility. There's a many crosswalk. Actually, that's 300 meter section is a 5 crosswalk there. And then the high vehicle pedestrian conflict in there. And we didn't see it here, but based on the driving, you remember there's the boulevard just next to the road. So there's some tree of the forest there that actually blocking some of the sight line, as well as blocking the crossing pedestrian. We say that before, there's some lane change or weaving, mainly lane change weaving is because the people right turning, there's right turning only lane, and there's full lane, so there's some weaving and lane change. And also there's some capacity issue on the Fitzgerald Street. And why north-south approach, the approach some quite very wide on that one. And also the issue of the pedestrian visibility. So based on this, all of that one, based on this, all of that one, we identify some of the corridor issue and countermeasure. Oop, yeah, okay. Yeah, so that is the left side is the issue and right side is countermeasure. And also, we based on this one, we also see whether they recommend it here. Actually, most of them recommend it because that's what we think about that one. And there's a lot of bicycle facilities, such as we did consider some bicycle facility along the corridor. So that's maybe a share bike lane, or designated bike lane, or a cycle track, or multi-use pathway, number of things. The other thing is we can reduce the westbound to one full lane using the turn bay, because I said it before, we don't have the left, we don't have any left turn bay at the all three intersections. So maybe a good idea to reduce it and get the left turn bay. 5 crosswalk, there's lots of crosswalk. The idea is crosswalk is good. People, if we stop that, the car will be stopped. But if you got the two-way crosswalk, the driver seems to be ignore it or overrode it because they find oh that's another crosswalk. They don't pay attention. And also, pedestrian is crossing everywhere that way. So we're thinking about maybe concentrate some of the bike crossing. And then we say that the forage of on-street parking and utility pole in the area actually affecting the signage and pedestrian, waiting pedestrian. So we did suggest some of the remove on-street parking. That's actually reflected the same as the one for they reduce the westbound to one full lane. And also trim some forage, regulate this more like the city. We can say that we suggested to maintain this more. And also relocate utility pole. But this probably is a bit long term on that one. For the westbound eastbound lane, due to the lack of pavement marking, we also suggested to reduce it one lane on that one. That's similar to one in before. For the intersection, we actually have the issue and countermeasure for each intersection. But here, I just only provide one. That's the major one for Stupid Street. So we have wide approach on that one. So what we can do, we can install some curb extension at the intersection approach. So reduce the width. The one of the good thing is reduce the width, reduce the speed for the vehicle, better visibility, and also shorter pedestrian crossing distance. The one for the forage and on-street parking, actually the same as corridor Y. I'm not going to repeat it. Poor performance of the north-south corridor. As stated before, in the 2 years later, actually they are signalized warrant. So we did recommend to install the signal there. We did think about one thing about to do that way, but I'm going to say why we don't select one way about as a recommended. And then the next thing is pedestrian crossing facility. We did think about install the special crosswalk, such as some overhead and RFB. RFB stands for the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So there's a 2 lights on the next to the side, and causing this collision avenue. But we think that is not a bad idea. So not a best idea. So we think about not recommended. The detail we will say on the report also. So based on this one, I said that before, we were talking about one about. Why we are saying one about? So this is the one about, one about the layout if we're going to park it on the intersection. So you can see that in here. I will say the what reason here. That's the reason. One of the reasons is a longer distance, longer travel distance. So supposed people crossing here, now they're crossing. It's take a little longer time. And the cyclist also is a concern about that one in the traffic circle. The main point, I think, is the land. We don't have much land here. So you can see that, especially for this building. If we're going to build the one about here, we actually need to tear down this building and then rebuild with that all corner here. They do have the land here. I say the land, they got an open space there, but actually the city still need to buy the land to make a roundabout here. And the other thing is we do have the utility pole along the corridor. If you go into roundabout, all the utility pole need to be located or need to underground it. That's cost lots of money. So based on this one, we think there are two options. We can combine everything. So option one, actually option one, option two, pretty similar. We still take a signal here, and curb extension, reduce the width, adding a left-hand bay, and then make it a free link. That's both cases similar. However, this case we consider, we may need to put this one. We may consider is a cycle track on one side. We put the cycle track on the loft side. Mainly is connected all together and then connected to the link to go to Queens Road and then all the way go to downtown. Another one is a bike link, the master bike link on each side on the road on that one. Another thing we want to say is a YAP seat. We also consider to move the crosswalk, existing crosswalk here. We try to move the crosswalk on the other side because if we move the crosswalk on the other side, the heavy westbound right turn and southbound left turn will be less conflict with the pedestrian. So they have more free flow. Actually, the westbound right turn is more like the free flow movement instead of the need to wait the crosswalk and the thing we're crossing. But we put it here, maybe some issue for the horizontal curve or some other one. So we did suggest adding an RFB crosswalk here. That's what we call the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. We actually use this very common in the lower mainland, and also I saw that a lot of places in the US, they're also using RFB here in their crosswalk. So this is a cool cross section showing here, and then the crossing and cost estimate. So we do all the cost estimate and then calculate for each one, including the contingency about 30%, Class D fixed cost estimate. So altogether for the option one, that means cycle check on the left side, is about 617,000, and total cost for the option two on-street bike lane for each side, and 587,000. The mainly cost on you can see that is mainly on the install traffic signal. This is 350,000. And the next one is provide RFB and a warning flasher. That's 105,000. And the rest is bicycle facility and some payment marking is about 40,000 and 30,000. Okay, that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chan. There's a lot of information in here with respect to some of the alternatives, and you talk about a fair bit about curb extension. But I don't know exactly what that means in your presentation. So is that simply by narrowing the road down, the curb extension?
Yeah, and I don't know. Okay, this what we call curb extension. So curb extension here. So you can see that some of the location. I don't know. Is this city have it? They have some like they have some crosswalk location. They have bob out.
Oh, I see. So yeah.
Maybe more easy to say about that one. Yeah. Okay. Bob out or that one in corner bob or some other one. So make it to.
And I see that the geometry of them, because we have them in other locations in the city. We called them ball boats. They didn't get complete support of the neighborhoods in all cases. Cyclists perceive them to not be friendly to cycling. Not that they weren't. I think the shared lane cycling here is still a concept that's has to gain more traction with the cycling community. They want more dedicated biking. So I saw that in the option here.
Yeah. You can see here we recommend the corner curb extension on the north south lane instead of east west. So
because
we still keep a bicycle.
We'd be going to 3 lanes instead of the 4 lane. Considering so there's lots of space. Is what you're saying. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Does the council have any others? Councillor Jackson.
Yes, thank you very much. Is this something that you see as easily broken into stages so that we could do it in a phased approach, or would it all have to be done in the 1 year?
I I will say that if we're going to move it, the more urgent one or more the one I think should be going is a signal. So signalize this intersection will be getting to be modify the people, also to improve the capacity of that, standardize the people crossing. I didn't say, I forget to mention about once you did the crosswalk signalize it, the crosswalk actually become a signalized crosswalk. You got a signal face, the people crossing, they're much safer than the marked crosswalk and crossing a 4-lane wall or something like that. And at the same time, you can do the left-hand bay here, and then reserve the bicycle to do it later or something like that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay. With one further question from your perspective, with the Ypres Street intersection, because there's a hill, and I actually live on Ypres, so I travel that intersection often.
Okay.
And it's a challenge for people. It's essentially a two-way stop for Ypres, so there's a lot of confusion about people making lefts off of Queens Road or Ypres onto Coronation going east, so they don't know if somebody is going straight through going north. There's a lot of confusion, and of course the amount of waiting to be people are very cautious there, and I'm challenged that there hasn't been more accidents at that intersection, because people really are, because it's so, they have to really think about their movements there. They are usually quite cautious, but it's very dangerous for pedestrians. And so you were suggesting moving that crosswalk to the west onto the hill. So does that create any challenge for vehicles who are coming down a hill to stop actually on the hill?
Yeah, I agree. This is something we need to think about that one, but we did think, that's why we suggested put some RFB, the flashing beacon for one side, and also we do suggest some advanced warning sign here to let the people driver know about that one. I did go to the site actually this morning again, and yeah, there's some challenging on that one, but once you go to some advanced alert, the advanced warning and the flashing beacon next to crosswalk, they should be improved. And also, we also propose some curb extension, so narrow the road, so to make it the visibility better for the pedestrian, so you can see the pedestrian more better. Here, so you can see the curbs extend on both sides. Yeah, that's some challenge.
Yeah, they come over the hill pretty quick.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they're, by the time they're at the bottom of the hill, they're doing their legal 50 kilometers an hour, which is quite quick, quite fast for that space. It's not a lot of time.
Yeah, I think we did think about that also to provide some speed reader board. So RCMP left, but you guys can also be board in that one, so they can see the speed on that one. That's one of the good things of that.
Right. Well, thank you. We'll talk more about it it'll be likely referred to committee.
Yep.
And it's
Sure.
already, I believe it's already on the agenda for further discussion. Is there any other questions? Sharon, you?
No, I just want to hand this to the gentleman so that he can take his family to see the Raptors tomorrow.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very
Chan.
much. Yeah.
Very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I know that you got EPIS. Yes.
Okay, so we'll be moving on to issue of rise and report, and this is reporting out from our last closed council meeting. I believe it was committee of the whole. Item 6.1, and it's an announcement that Joyce Troost, architect from Architectural Institute of BC, was appointed to the advisory design panel to replace Tony James as recommended by Molly Chan, chair of the IABC Design Panel Committee. And that's just for your information being reported out of camera. So we move next to the report of the Chief Administrative Officer, and he's distributed his report. Peter, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just touch on a few of the items on my report. The Canada Avenue, Government Street intersection upgrades, the contract was awarded in April, is still underway there. The 2nd Street capital project, the actual construction is underway, and the water main installation itself is actually now complete. So that's progressing. The pedestrian signals on Government Street at Jubilee, The pedestrian lights have arrived and the lampposts are currently being fabricated. The sidewalk work is expected to be completed this week.
Okay.
The City Hall elevator will be repaired or undergoing some maintenance upgrades actually later next week. So it will be unavailable for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. Notices are being posted in the paper, on the city's website, and on Facebook advising the public of that closure. Obviously, and we won't have an accessible facility during those 3 days.
So I won't be seeing staff upstairs for the next number of months.
Yeah, right. Actually, some of the staff have a stair challenge they like to use on their breaks. So they love the stairs. The amalgamation study. 5 proposals were received for the Citizens Assembly Consultant RFP. The proposals will undergo an internal review prior to recommendations by the Council Steering Committee to both councils. That's it.
Okay. And if there's any questions, there's more on there, so if there's any questions, we'll have those at the end of the meeting. So we move on to reports of committees, and we have the August 2nd Committee of the Whole recommendations, and I believe that was Councillor Horgan. Sorry, Councillor Jackson. So if you'd like to report on those recommendations.
Okay, so this is from the August 2nd, 2016 Committee of the Whole. Recommendations are in regard to the Citizen Satisfaction Survey for 2016, the Council authorized staff to sole source the contract for conducting the Citizen Satisfaction Survey to Discovery Research for the contracted price of $8,932 plus GST, and then the communication plan be amended that to state future citizen satisfaction surveys will be conducted every 2 years as opposed to annually.
Okay, so that's moved. Is there a seconder?
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Horgan opposed. I'd just like to check in with Councillor Bruce, whether you heard that motion. We can't get in? Okay, so we're down to a bare quorum here, so that motion passes. Okay, thank you. So you move on to the second recommendation. Councillor Jackson?
I don't, sorry, I beg your pardon. Appointment of the alternate voting delegate for the MIA Annual General Meeting, which is the Municipal Insurance Authority, that Councillor Duncan be appointed as an alternate voting delegate at the Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia's Annual General Meeting in September.
Okay, and that's moved, and there's a seconder. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Horgan. Any questions on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. So move on to reports of Mayor and Council. So any councillors have reports? Councillor Jackson? And that's it. Okay. It was a very busy month. It seems surprising to me that that summer is so busy.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be that way in the beginning. I know when I first came on council, it was kind of boring in the summer, but it really has ramped up. So I attended a number of things. I'll just quickly touch on them. I did go to the Rotary Club of Duncan on the 18th of July and just gave an overview of things that were going on in the city and answered questions, and it's always quite a great place to go. They're a great group of people who have been around the community a long time, so a lot of them are in the know, but they always seem to have good questions, and that was very useful. I had sort of a little bit of a working holiday over a few days. From the 22nd, I went up to and attended a iced tea executive meeting in Courtney on Friday, back to Nanaimo for lunch for an ICF liaison committee meeting, and then back up to Alert Bay on Friday night to attend an event in Alert Bay on Saturday. So that was the working part, Friday and Saturday morning. But the Alert Bay I've never been there before. I've been certainly to Port McNeill, and we've had ABICC conferences in Port Hardy in the past, but it was really quite a nice visit, and I got to see the former mayor of Port McNeill, Jerry Fernie, and I had to actually track him down. I went to the tackle store next to the cafe and asked if anybody knew where Jerry was, and they said, oh, he'll probably be in the coffee shop in about an hour. Look for his green car, and I actually went back to the hotel, came back a few minutes later, and there he was. He pulled in, and so we had a nice little breakfast together. a nice chat. So I saw him, and very welcomed in Alert Bay by Mayor Michael Berry. Very nice man, and we toured the whole island, Comrade Island, and we also went to a art gallery show exhibition. It was part of their Seafest opening, and there's some very amazing artists in there. It's just crazy. I couldn't, young people, just amazing stuff. So that was a nice part of the trip. On the 26th, I met the consultant from the ADICC who's looking for reviewing the ICF governance, Kelly Daniels, and we had a good meeting on that day. I had a board meeting on the 28th for ICF. Many Success by Six executive committee meetings lately, and Mr. Durvertai was also in attendance to those. Thank you for your volunteering on those areas. Very interesting MIA risk management workshop at the CBRD on the 10th, and it was really an eye-opening discussion. Everything's all right, everything's good, but it was really interesting to see how they measure and manage risk and with respect to municipalities, because it's our own insurance company. So that was very informative. The CVRD, we had a number of committee meetings, including transit committees meetings and a board meeting, regional services and engineering. One part of note, which is of interest to this council or all the councils in the CVRD, is there was awarded from Canada, the Build Canada Fund. I'm not sure which one it was, but with respect to transit, so there's going to be a fairly significant investment in a maintenance and facility for the transit system, which will make things a lot more effective and efficient. So there'll be budget items coming forward with respect to the global budget in respect to that. But most of the cost is being covered by senior government, so that's a good thing. And then I attended with Councillor Jackson yesterday at the Cenotaph for the Burma Star, and it certainly isn't Remembrance Day. It's a very small group, but dedicated group of Legion members that are there, and no visitors. But the Padre that was at the ceremony did a very good job. I think that's the first time I've met him, but he was a very nice gentleman, and did a very good job. So, and that's it. There was a lot more, but Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thank you very much. July was a very busy month at the Couch and Community Center Commission, which has been covered pretty widely in the paper, so I won't go into that in any detail. On the 6th of this month, we had a planning session for the Haywa Park dedication, which will be happening on September the 23rd. Haywa Park is the park that used to be called Canada Avenue Park at the foot of Cairnsmore Stairs. So this is the very last of the the Duncan Centennial events that started in 2011 actually, and through 2012, and then there's been a few since. But this is to honor the previous Japanese Canadian citizens of Duncan that, of course, were interned during the Second World War. So we've sent out invitations to as many of them as we can find and their families, and it should be a really great day. And as the mayor just said, yesterday we went to the Burma Star Remembrance. Of course, Charles Hoey, who used to live in the house that I owned for a while on Warncliffe, lived here in Duncan, and there are some people who still remember him well, and he was killed in Burma. When I first started on council back in 1996, when I was a child, there used to be 30 older gentlemen that would get on a bus, and Burma Star guys, and they would all come over here and be part of the ceremony, and then they would all go to the Legion, have lunch, and then head back to Vancouver. And about 5 years ago, there were only about 5, and now nobody comes over from Vancouver anymore, and it's just a handful of very dedicated Legion members from this area that do this. And there was one lady there, and I forget her name. You will know her name. She wears a poppy every day, and somebody at church had said, it's not November the 11th, you shouldn't be wearing the poppy. And she said, I wear a poppy every day of my life because I remember every day of my life. I thought, oh. Anyway, it was a short but moving ceremony, so I was glad to be there.
Okay, Thank you. So we're going to move on to reports of staff, and item 10.1 on the agenda is the Jubilee Community Garden lease, and there's a request for decision from Ms. McWilliam, our corporate service coordinator, with respect to that lease, and the recommendation that council support in principle a 3-year lease between the City of Duncan and the Jubilee Community Garden Society for the purpose of operating a community garden at the identified lots. I won't go into the detail. It's in Centennial Park. We know where it is. At the rate of $1 per year, as attached to the August 15th report by the Corporate Services Coordinator, and that the notice of disposition of the city lands for lease by advertising pursuant to Section 26 of the Community Charter, and that the notice of intention to provide assistance by disposing of a land for less than market value be advertised pursuant to Section 24 of the Community Charter, and that once the notice requirements have been fulfilled in accordance with Section 94 of the Community Charter, and the lease be forwarded to council for consideration.
So moved.
So moved. Seconded. Any discussion on this? Questions? All right. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. We move to the building statistics report and a motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Doesn't actually use that word, but you've got it on your agenda. So the motion is moved and seconded. Okay. And any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? That motion carried. So there is no new business? No? And question period. So is there any questions from council with respect to the CA report? Councillor Jackson?
Yes, maybe through you to the planner who is not here, but somebody. The little building that's going to go up on Jubilee Street, which is Fortis, does that have to go through an advisory design panel? Is it going to just look like a cinder block, or is it going to sort of look like a little house so that it matches the neighborhood?
Unfortunately,
Make sure your mic's on.
Unfortunately, the design guidelines, the OCP exempts utilities from the design guidelines. However, so we don't have a lot of input in how the building is looking, but the landscaping surrounding the property should detract from it somewhat.
That's too bad, because, you know, in the middle of Berlin, they have big power producing facilities that are made to look like nice apartment buildings, and they fit in with the neighborhood, and you would never know that it was like a power generator, you know, behind the walls there. And it's too bad that we couldn't consider that next time if there is another facility like that going up
Certainly
anywhere in the city.
The draft that the staff's working on for the new zoning bylaw would not, we're working towards not exempting those going forward so that they can fit in. I mean, the city took somewhat of that approach in trying to fit in on its upgrades to the water well on Elwilson Grove last year. So that's our intent, is that they fit in as opposed to just looking like utility buildings with
Okay, that's great. Thank you
fencing
very
around
much.
them and so on. So
I believe, Mr. Dervataille, you did contact Fortis with respect to this building and attempted to...
we actually attempted that we would work somewhat creatively with them and try to subdivide the property so that we could actually have a couple of houses fronting Jubilee, but they wanted to utilize the entire property, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to a resolution to go into closed meeting, and that the meeting be closed under the following sections of the Community Charter. Section 91A, personal information about an individual is being considered for a position appointed by the municipality. Section 91E, the acquisition or expropriation of land and improvements, if the council considers the disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. And Section 91F, law enforcement, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under enforcement or enactment.
So moved.
So moved. Seconded. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, seconded. And all in favor? Everybody, thank you. So we'll just break for 5 minutes and resume into closed session.